Coming up on First at 4, a confessed murderer learns her fate, what the victim's mother had to say at today's sentencing. Plus, violent clashes erupted overnight at college campuses across the country. A look at the protests and where Kentucky students will be rallying tonight.
And some areas may flirt with 90 by this time tomorrow. Your forecast on the way as Mountain News First at 4 starts now.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News First at 4.
Good afternoon, I'm Steve Hensley. Thanks for joining us today on HNI and WYMT.com. First at 4, a Leslie County woman was sentenced after pleading guilty to murder. Cariana Burton was charged with the murder of Jacqueline Lingar in 2021. Burton pleaded guilty as part of a plea agreement back in March. She was sentenced to 22.5 years in prison. The victim's mother, Sheila Adams, spoke after the sentencing about what she wants people to take away from this tragedy.
Don't take life for granted. Life is too short to worry about nonsense. To enjoy life, love your family, and don't sit and dwell on the nonsense.
The Commonwealth's attorney and defense attorney both had no comment after the sentencing. Burton was taken to the Leslie County Detention Center.
We are starting May on a warm note. Those highs should be in the 70s. Most of us today in the upper 70s to lower 80s. Let's take a live look from Southwest Virginia from UVA Wise. Plenty of blue sky back in the distance. A little bit more mild in Southwest Virginia at 73 degrees. Over in Wise, most of us though in the upper 70s to lower 80s, up to 81 for Irvin, also in Moorhead, 80 for Jackson, 80 also in Manchester, 82 over in Harlan County at this hour. Not a drop on first alert pinpoint Doppler, all thanks to high pressure and some more dry weather is on tap as a result as we go into tonight. But notice we are tracking a storm system over the middle of the country, producing some showers and storms in Oklahoma, also for Kansas, and that will be our next weather system as we go through late Thursday, also on Friday. This evening though, if you have those plans, we stay dry under a mainly clear sky, also mild temperatures in the middle to upper 70s. Most of us wake up in the 50s on Thursday, and we are much warmer by this time tomorrow. Possibly some of us close to 90 by Thursday afternoon. All those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. With 4 law enforcement officers dead and several more injured during a shooting in Charlotte, North Carolina this week, officers in Floyd County are in mourning for their brothers in blue. WYMT's Buddy Forbes has more from the city of Allen, where officers faced a very similar situation nearly 2 years ago.
Floyd County officials say Monday's officer-involved shooting in North Carolina really hits close to home as they compare to what happened here in Allen nearly 2 years ago, while also working to send love across the front line. Sheriff John Hunt says he watched the news unfold as 4 officers lost their lives in Charlotte, feeling an eerie connection to the departments impacted. He says the situation, an unexpected standoff from a shooter inside of a home, and the impact of losing 4 officers, which mirrors Floyd County's loss of 3 officers and a canine, brought him back to the night everything changed for Floyd County's first responders.
It breaks your heart to hear it anywhere, but obviously the similarities between ours and theirs, the numbers, it really hit home and made you stop and think just what was going on in their mind and what is going on in their community.
Both Sheriff John Hunt and Prestonsburg Police Chief Ross Shurtleff say they expect to send officers and deputies to the funerals to contribute to what they expect to be a sea of support for the fallen officers and their families. In Floyd County, Buddy Forbes, WYMT Mountain News.
So eerily similar to what happened there in Floyd County. Officials say a police shooting is always hard, but a situation like the one officers in North Carolina are facing and like we saw in Allen in June 2022 is almost unheard of. We will have more from Hunt and Shurtleff coming up tonight at 6. University of Kentucky students will rally today over the war in Gaza. The group Lex for Palestine is hosting the event. Organizers say the demonstration will show support for Palestinians overseas. An online flyer encourages people participating to remain peaceful. The rally starts at 5 o'clock outside the William T. Young Library, and we'll have more on this later tonight. Campus protests against the war in Gaza escalated overnight across the country. At UCLA, counter-demonstrators launched what looked like fireworks at the tents of pro-Palestinian protesters who had set up an encampment. They also tried to knock down the barriers in front of the camp. Things also escalated at Columbia University as New York City police officers moved in. Some climbed through a window to get protesters out of an academic building they had been occupying. New York City's mayor blamed outside agitators for the rise in tension.
We knew these children were being exploited and they were in danger. It was clear we had to take appropriate actions. When our intelligence division identified those who were professionals, well-trained, one of them was married to someone that was arrested for terrorism.
The NYPD made hundreds of arrests overnight in connection to the protests. Police will remain on campus until at least the middle of the month to prevent another encampment. Columbia University said students who had been occupying the building now face expulsion. Today, the House is voting on the bipartisan Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. The legislation would mandate that the Education Department adopt the broad definition of anti-Semitism used by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Supporters say this will help fight Jewish hate on college campuses where pro-Palestinian protests have been springing up. But opponents say the act overreaches and threatens free speech by equating criticism of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism. This week, more than 20 high school students and school staff from Ohio are back in the mountains for the second time. They are from the U.S. Grant Career Center in Bethel, just outside of Cincinnati, and they are using their technical skills to continue supporting the area following the July 2022 flood. Superintendent Mike Perry says it's important to teach their students the skills they are learning at school and give them the chance to make an impact.
Giving is an act that anyone can do at any time. Your giving is not necessarily reaching in your pocket to make a donation, but it is really just extending a hand and asking, how can I help? And those simple things, those simple questions often make the world a better place.
The students were helping make repairs to a home in Perry County today. We'll have more from some of the students tonight at 6. But coming up here on First at 4, a 9-year-old boy saves his parents after a tornado picks up and tosses their truck with everyone inside. How the little hero was able to get help.
Plus, we are tracking some soggy weather for Friday and for Derby weekend. Those details after this break.